Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be recording a new video for you today. Today's session is going to be about a question someone asked me last week. Okay, so someone asked me a question about addiction. That person asked me how do I recover from my addiction to cigarette. All right, and there are actually measures, there are things you can do in a mindful way to recover from addiction. But what I would like to focus on is actually how easy it is to get into addiction, and why is it that easy to get into addiction. Okay, because if we can tackle this question, um, actually we won't need to talk about how to recover from addiction. And if you think about it, if we want to understand why addiction is something which can easily uh, which we can easily be influenced by. Okay, and I'm not necessarily talking about addiction linked to substance abuse. We could be addicted to a certain toxic relationship as well. Okay, there are several sorts of addiction. There's addiction to food, for instance, as well. So there are several sorts of addiction, but what's the main thing which makes people get into addiction? That's what I want to focus on. And to understand this, we need to understand how we interpret the world around us. Okay, we interpret the world around us through our senses. Okay, we use our eyes to look around us and actually try to evaluate what we're saying. We use our ears to listen. Okay, to listen and once again interpret that information, and we use our tongue to actually taste food and know whether the food is good or not. Okay, and from a scientific perspective, we use data to interpret the world around us. And there are two different kinds of reasoning, one called inductive reasoning and one deductive reasoning, which is widely used in science and mathematics. Okay, but mainly people use their senses to interpret the world around us, and not only to interpret the world around them. We use our senses to also guide our actions. Okay, for example, we do actions which make us feel good or which make us feel significant. Okay, for example, naturally we are driven by emotions and feelings. So we need to be close to people, and that sense of belonging and the love generated makes us feel good. So that's why for most people it's important to have someone close. This makes them feel significant, and when you have someone close, you can actually give love and receive love, because these things are important to for human beings. Okay, because emotions make us feel good. All right, so all our actions basically are driven by whether we're going to acquire something. It could be acquisition of money, acquisition of social status, a promotion at work. All these things make us feel good. That's why we're driven by them. All right, so acquisition of things because we feel good, and love and emotion. Okay, because these things also make us feel good. So we are constantly driven by our senses to acquire things or to experience things. Okay, that's our basic condition. But the problem with that is, if you just rely on senses, you can't be happy, because a lot of the emotions we feel are actually short term. Okay, we can't experience them in the long term, and this makes us this causes suffering, in fact. All right, and how do we link that to addiction now? Because we are guided by our senses to perform actions. Okay, and this is quite good. Okay, for example, we will never do something which will cause us harm. I will never voluntarily hit on the wall with my fist, because I'm going to experience pain, so that's not good. So in this way we are guided by emotions to do things which are actually beneficial for us. Now, the problem with addiction is, the problem with substance abuse is, it makes us feel good. Okay, so when you actually consume drugs or you consume alcohol, it makes the body feel good. Very short term, but it actually makes the body feel good, and that's why people so easily get into addiction, because once again, they're guided by emotion. So when you consume a certain substance, which can be addictive, it makes you feel good, all right? And that's how we easily fall into that trap of addiction. And that's the main reason why we can't just rely on senses, okay, to experience reality. We need to have that aspect of data. And it's one of the things explored in the Eightfold Path in Buddhism, which is the right understanding. And right understanding comes from analysis of data, okay, use of the intellect. So we can't just rely on senses to experience reality. If we want to be wise and we want to be happy, we need to look at the data as well. So if you look at the data, if you just don't, be guided by the sensory aspect of your being, you will know that the alcohol or whatever substance we've got there will make me feel good in a temporarily, for a short lapse of time, but in the long run it's detrimental to my body, so I won't consume it. So you need to balance feelings, emotions with the intellect. If you can do that, then you will live a really balanced life. We're not saying we just live with the intellect, because you can't just be rational and just look at data and live your life like that. You need to have that human aspect of a warm heart. And actually, it's just balancing the heart with the mind. If you can do that, you win. All right. So what the whole message of the video is, you can't just rely on senses. We need to have the intellect also, which guides our actions. Because if we can balance both, then we can live a balanced life. Okay. So actually, if you think about it, addiction become like a global phenomenon, because people just let themselves be guided by the senses, as simple as that. So if we knew from the start that we can't just rely on senses, we actually need to rely on the intellect. And if we were trained like that since a very young age, addiction wouldn't be a big problem like it is right now. Okay, so I'll just leave you with that message, and we try to elaborate a bit more on addiction in the next few videos. Okay, so it was very interesting to record this video for you. I'll see you very soon. Okay, lots of love, Girish. Bye bye.